Welcome back to another episode of Artist to Artist presented by Artist Republic. Once again, I'm Nick. This is Christian. And please remember, give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate it. It makes us so we are able to put on these podcasts every single week for all of you to get the knowledge, get the connections, and everything you need to grow your career. With that being said, Christian, what's in the news today?
I'm taking it back to our NFT discussion that we have on the occasion. This article that came out pretty recently, I think it's from Michigan. It talks about how Calvin Harris, the EDM artist, believes that NFTs can completely revolutionize the music industry, quote unquote. Looks like he has teamed up with a director named Emil Nava on a collection of artwork called Technofish. And it's being auctioned off as an NFT. I think a lot of people in the music industry have kind of latched on to this idea of non-fungible tokens. I personally think that it's a really cool idea. I just don't know if it's going to take off seriously for at least a few years. I think right now there's a lot of hype around it, but I think that bubble is gonna pop. I'm curious to know what you think.
Graph of Bitcoin. Bitcoin had this massive explosion and it dropped, it went up and dropped. People got in the beginning were like, oh my God, this is going to be the next big thing. Don't get me wrong, it could be the next big thing, but let's not throw all of our chickens in, one basket yet. The music industry is very dynamic. You're dealing with art. You're not dealing with, things that's not art. You're dealing with non-tangible products, especially in a world where things are not tangible in the sense of think about 10 years ago, Napster. Don't get me wrong. Yes, there's blockchain verifying all this stuff, but art has never been something that has really been, I don't know. It's hard. And I know I'm going in weird directions with it. I can't really put my mind on the answer I'm trying to get to, but it's going to take a lot to be adoptable. I think it's a really cool idea right now. I think it's an awesome way to make some money. I think it's a passive revenue source or an active revenue source for artists to diversify their revenue sources, which is greatly needed. I just don't know where it's going to go. You kind of can explain it to cryptocurrency, where in the sense of how many cryptocurrencies came out, when they had the thing 4 years ago, where it was the ICO, initial coin offerings, billions of dollars were lost in initial coin offerings because everyone thought it was the next big thing. And then it just flattened on its face. And it could go somewhere, but just how many cryptocurrencies are actually being used besides Bitcoin? I can buy a coffee technically now with Bitcoin, yes, but I can't buy it with Litecoin or any of the other cryptocurrencies yet. And so, maybe I'm wrong. Tell me in the comment sections. Maybe I'm wrong. But genuinely, I think that, it needs a lot more infrastructure and support to really become a thing.
Yeah. And, I think the NFT conversation is a little bit different in that it's art that's being bought and sold. And I think primarily it's more geared towards those who actually have the money to do it. There are different levels in the NFT markets in terms of pricing structure. But if you want to actually make good money, you as an individual have to have enough inherent value for whatever that NFT art to be worth something. That's why you see the only NFTs that are getting a shit ton of money are by people who already have notoriety. It's famous people, celebrities, people that are generally known by the public. And that all trickles down into, the value of whatever this object is. That's a whole different conversation. So I think we can get started here.
It's like clout coin that I've been reading about lately. We can literally just make a value off of a coin, off of your cloutness.
Yeah.
It's all, Moving on with our guest today, we are bringing on Kristy James. 2021 has started out extremely well for Kristy, releasing her first course under her Business Shape Music, which is a business created for helping independent artists navigate the music industry. Kristy James is a multi-award-winning Newcastle singer-songwriter who has been in the music industry most of her life. Recently, Kristy has signed with Los Angeles Music Library Sync Stories, concentrating on producing music for TV and film. She has a huge list of accolades, from being a 2021 Australian Business of the Year finalist to obtaining the #2 spot for iTunes albums in 2014. And the list goes on. So let's bring Kristy on to talk about it. Christian, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first person that we have had on outside of the United States.
I think so. Actually, yeah, I think so.
I feel very privileged.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, Christian, as always, kick us off with the first question of the day.
Awesome. Well, Kristy, it's great to meet you again. Thank you for taking time out of your morning to come and hang out with us. I always like to start these things off by just kind of having you walk us through how you got to where you're at today, you know, why you do what you do. I think the audience would love to know who Kristy James is.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's a long story, isn't it? Like, the older I get, the longer it gets. I was kind of just born knowing I wanted to do music. So people say, you know, when did you start? And I've just always sang. And when I was like 14, I decided to record my first EP. So I had already done heaps and heaps of singing by then. And so, yeah, I started recording when I was 14, and then I started my own business when I was 14 as well, just running school discos. I don't know why they let 14-year-olds back then do that kind of stuff, but they did. It's like, now to think about it, it's just like ridiculous. But and then as I turned 18, I started, you know, playing in bands and playing around town, and had a little break for a while, and then got back into the recording world of things. So I've done a lot of different things within the music industry, but it's always been within the music industry. And for maybe the last, God, time goes so fast, I don't even keep count anymore. But for about the last 12 years, I've been really heavily into recording and releasing music. Now I write more for like sync music, so that's kind of what my husband and I do. But my main focus these days is actually taking my experiences from the music industry, which are plenty, and using that to help other artists get into the music industry and kind of short track their careers, so it doesn't take as long as it did for me to actually learn how to get somewhere. Because when you're in the music industry, there is a bit of a formula, and if you don't follow that, you can go way off track. You can waste a lot of money, a lot of time, experience a lot of heartache. So I just wanted to share my knowledge to just try to help people not go through that same kind of stress and heartache that I did. Like, I could have bought, you know, 2 houses by now with the amount of money that I spent trying to figure out how do you get people to listen, you know, how do you get your stuff out to the world, how do you get people in the industry to listen. So that's my passion now, which is why I started what's called Shape Music. So yeah, that's the shortened version of my story.
The short Genesis story. I love it. So first thing that I would like to know, Christian, although we have people now from different countries, there is one thing that is very similar to many people on the podcast. Kristy started by hosting shows.
Boom.
Everyone starts by hosting shows. That is what I've learned. So, Kristy, I hosted my first concert when I was a freshman in high school, 15 years old. People we had on our podcast this morning started hosting concerts at a like local regional like little like venue hall when he was 16 years old, and you started at 14. Like, everyone, there are so many people that I've met in the music industry, and I tell people this all the time: if you want to get involved in the music industry, start by hosting a concert. It's not that hard.
Yeah,
do it. You can get it together. It's a great way to meet artists. It's a great way to see how the industry works. You can make money doing it. And
Yeah.
no one questions you if you're bringing them money. I don't know why people let me at 16 years old do half the things that I was doing.
Yeah.
And you know what? It made people money, so people didn't question it. So that's
Exactly.
yeah. So that's we need to put that on a sign, Christian, a part of Artist to Artist podcast. Get in the music industry, host a concert.
Host a show.
It's a bit harder with all the restrictions now.
Yes, be very hard, but hopefully we'll be out of it soon.
Yeah.
So with that, diving into my first question, which would be, tell us a little bit more about Shape. Like, what are your main focuses in how you help artists? And let's start there.
So the main focus is more so for people who are obviously independent artists who are either just emerging or have been around for a little bit and they can't seem to understand or get that flow going. So it's really about brand development and teaching people that it's a music business. So when you don't have a brand and you don't treat your career as a music business, it's very hard to move forward. So it's really about creating awareness of the steps that make a successful artist, which again is all of your branding, all of your marketing, all of the business side of things, having business plans, making sure you're set up financially and that business side of things as well. But it's also about, like I was saying, from all of my experiences, it's about that process of then going and starting to record. So who do you kind of trust when you're moving into the industry? Who do you trust to record or produce your work? And from there, what do you do with your product once you've got it? How do you release it out to the world successfully? So it's basically, I like to teach from the very inception through to releasing music successfully and then going and fine-tuning that process and using it over and over again so that each release is bigger and better. So I hope that that makes sense. But it's basically, yeah.
Well, Christian, I would love to pass the talking stick of awesomeness off to you over here.
Yeah, I think this is really, everything that you do and everything that we're talking about right now is a lot of what we at Artist Republic try to pride ourselves on as a company, is making sure that independent artists can get where they want to go with the least amount of barriers. And I think, what you offer helps eliminate so many barriers for artists, and it's interesting how available the knowledge is, but how many people don't realize how available it is.
And that was actually, sorry to cut you off there, but in my country especially, and I've been over to the States a lot, and it's quite different over there. But in Australia, as much as you would think the information and the knowledge is available, it's almost impossible to find. It is really almost impossible to find because people don't like to share it that much. They just really like to keep it really close to home. And it's really hard to just figure out the next step because people are just afraid of, not being able to move forward themselves or, it's just, I just didn't want that anymore. Like, I don't know what it's like over there, but that's kind of how it is here.
That may explain why we have so many users joining from Australia.
Maybe I think
Artist Republic from Australia.
And
why?
Yeah, I don't mean to make us sound terrible. It's not really like that. What I actually think it might be, and it's kind of the same with our music, is I think we're a bit behind in the times. So all of the idea and notion of online courses, joining groups that are available from online courses like masterminds and things like that, is not popular in Australia at all. In fact, I think I don't know anyone else in the industry kind of doing one of these kind of courses and things that I offer in my country. So
that's interesting. Because I know at least, what I see on social media in and around here in the United States, it's like there's people trying to offer this stuff everywhere. Like you got one guy out here trying to sell you on his course in the music industry, and then you got a guy over here trying to sell the same thing, which is a little bit different.
Yeah.
It's almost oversaturated here, which I find pretty interesting that it's limited out there in Australia.
Yeah, yeah, and I was really surprised. I'm working with a company, a marketing company in Nashville at the moment, and that was one of the things that they said. It's like we can find people doing what you're doing on every corner. I'm like, really? Because I wanted to start something here because we can't find anything, and I'm like, I wish I had known when I was trying to learn that somebody was doing it. Would have saved me a lot of time, and a lot of drama, because like I really honestly have gone through everything like the longest possible way, but it's taught me a lot of lessons, so I mean I'm thankful for that. But yeah, no courses here.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of the resources were created here. So like a lot of the independent distributors are in New York City, and a lot of their marketing is in New York City, and it's in the United States. And we went out and we said, hey, let's go market to Nigeria. Music market is exploding there. Let's go market to South America. Let's market to Eurozone. Let's market to Australia. And it's been doing insanely well. And we sat back and we're like, because music artists are everywhere.
Exactly.
And every independent artist, no matter if you're from Nigeria, Canada, United States, Australia, wherever, you all need the same resources. You all need the same knowledge. And there's just been a lack across the entire industry of just sharing the knowledge, because I think traditionally the music industry is shaped on this notion of, I know how to succeed and I'm not going to share it with anybody.
Yes.
And
yeah.
it's like, why? Like, why can't we make
I know.
where we all, like, I've always said that, like, if everyone's chasing to get the steak, then no one's going to get it. So why don't we just all share the steak dinner?
Share it. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's been my mentality for many years. Artists come to me and they'll ask for advice, and I'll just give it straight up. And other people are like, "Why are you doing that?" I'm like, "Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?" So that's just something that I guess is bred in me, is built in who I am as a person, is to just kind of help and not hold things to myself. Like, sometimes I get in trouble for giving away just too much.
Well,
like, stop.
Well, I find it interesting, this whole topic. We're talking a lot about, and we didn't talk a lot about it. I should rephrase that more as like we mentioned it a little bit, where, a lot of the time you find a lot of major music companies, organizations, et cetera, are based in the United States. And I think being someone who comes from the United States, we as a general population are kind of ethnocentric in a way about the music industry, where we think that like it's just us Americans in on the game, right? We got a couple of those guys who hop over the pond to come over here, but there's nowhere else. But that's so wrong. And Artist Republic has proven that time and time again, that hundreds upon thousands of our artists come from all of these countries that somebody wouldn't immediately go to and say, oh yeah, that's where the music is. In Australia, what is something that you notice that's, I guess, a little bit more, what am I trying to say here? Like something that's Australia that like you would only be able to find in Australia in terms of like music and artistry?
In terms of music and artistry that you could only find in Australia, you're gonna have to give me a little more than that.
Well, so in Africa, for example, they have a genre called Afrobeats, and that genre has kind of permeated into some of the genres that we start hearing here in America.
Okay, well, I guess the biggest thing, like kind of in that kind of sense, would actually be our country music. So in Australia, it's really hard for artists like me, because I have a very American style country music genre. That's where my music fits, and I feel like our country music is like 10 years behind. So our country music is literally like bush music. Like, I'm gonna go down the street and I'm gonna be, you know what I mean? Like, it's very, very Australian. So if you guys came over and listened to our country music, you would probably go back home. And I love it. It's very much our culture. And it's talking about things that, you know, a lot of other countries kind of wouldn't have a clue as to what we're talking about. So that's the biggest thing, you know, for me, I guess, is that, that our genres of music, like what we call country, is not what you call country.
It's a different definition.
Yeah, definitely. Probably with a lot of our genres, actually. Yeah.
Intriguing.
And it's really hard to evolve our country past that. And that's something that we've all been working on, and people like Keith Urban really help with that. But you'll hear we've got a lot of, like, Dan and Shay and a lot of other country acts coming onto our mainstream radio, and I'll have people say, "Oh man, I hate country and Western music." I'm like, firstly, let's cut the Western off it. It's probably why you hate it. And secondly, they're like, "Oh, we love Dan and Shay. Have you heard their new song?" I'm like, "Yeah, they're country singers." "No, they're not." "Yeah, they are." You know, so like, it's just this whole not knowing, you know. It's like it's like our music world. It's like Australia is just very separated. We're just here by ourselves, and we don't know. And when new music comes over to us, especially new country music, nobody knows that it's country music.
And you know,
it's really weird.
I think that kind of plays back into the whole idea of like information not being shared across the board. You know, like.
It's not.
I have no idea what Australian country music would even sound like. You know, you gave me a brief example, but if I heard it,
I'll have to send you something.
Yeah, send us something.
Definitely.
I would love to hear it.
Well, it's also like perfect example in the United States. You have country music and then you have country music. And what I mean by that is you have the country music that people in the Northeast, where I'm from, listen to in their daddy's Jeep on the weekend going to their yacht. But then you have Texas country music and Nashville music that is way more grassroots, actual, like, more country, not pop.
Yeah.
And
then we've got something totally different.
Yeah.
I don't know what ours is.
and that's intriguing. And I also think, and I could be wrong too, I think what I've seen too recently is I don't know, I truly don't know, and this would be really intriguing if it is only a United States thing, because this would blow my mind, which is there's a lot of genre crossing in music nowadays.
Well, that's actually a really sore subject in Australia. So it's really strange because I am pretty genre crossing. So I'm like kind of like your country music, like you know, your Nashville country music crossed with that Melissa Etheridge, Alanis Morissette 90s thing. So I'm like this whole huge mix up of genres. I just write what I write, basically, and I'm like, you can figure it out. But the amount of times you'll hear people say, "That's not country. They can't play here. Stop playing. That's not country music." So it's like these people, our country is so protective of, you know, our genres. It's kind of just starting to now be okay to have that genre crossing. But yeah, if I turned up to like a country music festival and did my songs, I had better have some classic country songs in there to tide them over, or I'm in big trouble. I'm getting stuff thrown at me.
Yeah, no, it is really intriguing. That definitely goes to, you know, kind of talk about knowledge in the music industry. Because it can also play a big part to artists starting out of like, where do I target my music?
Exactly.
Because
yeah.
You could make music in the United States that's like, no one in the United States loves it, but people in Australia go for it. They don't like it. And so even if you're in New York and that's the music you make, then target Australia. But people need to understand like where their music is strong and where to target it.
And that's a big thing that I talk about with Shape is, targeting the right people. I also get the question a lot, am I too old to be starting a career? And it's the same thing. There's always going to be somebody that's going to listen to what you do. You just have to find those people. And that's what, finding your target market is all about. And when you understand that, that's when people start to listen, because that's the biggest problem that I had coming into the industry. I was always a singer, I'd spent many years and a lot of money trying to be the best singer that I could be. And then I get to this point where I'm like, well, that doesn't help, because now I can make sure, I can sing everything. What the hell do I actually sing? And what kind of artist am I? So then I had to transition from singer to artist. And that was the hardest thing for me. It's like, okay, well, who's going to listen to what I do? What do I even write? What genre am I? That was my biggest problem that I had figuring out. So yeah, target market is a huge thing, and it's something that I talk about quite a lot, because there's always somebody there. You just got to find them.
And how do you find what genre you are?
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's always a good question. I mean, think about the debacle that we had in the United States with Old Town Road when it broke the country charts, and then it was like, you're not a country song. And then Billy Ray Cyrus comes on and he's like, yes, I am. And then people are like, is it not? Who knows? And, so it's like, how do you define what genre you are?
Yeah. And eventually I gave up that war and I put out my music. And I said, you decide. You want to play it on country radio, play it on country radio. You want to play it on mainstream, you play it over there. I don't give a shit, as long as it's get played.
I like it.
So, yeah, that's a big thing.
So I want to talk a little bit more about Shape and, what you're doing with that. I know in the form that you filled out, you mentioned a little bit about this free workshop that you're offering. What is that all about?
Yeah, so we're changing up some things with the website at the moment, actually. So I've created a free 12-page ebook that has basically these steps that we're talking about. The branding, the target market, the recording, and then the releasing. And I'm giving that away. So it's completely free on my website. And that's just to help people, get started, along with the free content that I create on YouTube as well. So I'm literally in the middle of tweaking that website. So that's going to be ready today. But yeah, it's something that I just thought, if I had, and I do this with all of my content, I create it by thinking back to when I was starting out, thinking, okay, well, what would I need? What would have I needed to get me to that next step? And then I think, if I had this product, if I had this content, could have I moved to the next level? So this ebook is basically everything that you need to get started and to move on from there. So and I just wanted to develop that, get it out for people for free, which is on my website, which is shapemusic.online. And then I create a heap of free content on YouTube as well.
Awesome. Yeah, so if you're listening and you'd like we said 12-page guide on how to navigate the industry, definitely check out, what was the website again?
Shapemusic.online.
Shapemusic.online. And I'll put that in the description as well, so that people can access it quickly and easily.
Yeah. And it's completely free. Download straight there. Read it. Do it. Implement it. Get your music out. Internalize it.
Internalize it.
Internalize it. I'm literally on the website. It's literally a big big purple button. Just click it.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Get everything you need to know. Just click a purple button and get everything you need to know.
Yep.
I will be appearing in ad content now.
I'll have to pay you later. Yeah. So yeah, shapemusic.online. And then I have more resources available from there. So once you get that free ebook, that'll pop you onto my email list, which I literally weekly send out free content, plus, any kind of extra stuff that I think will really help. Recently, just 2 weeks ago, for instance, I released an album, and the distribution house completely ruined my pre-order. And long story short, Taylor Swift and Luke Bryan released that week anyway, so I was number 3 on the charts. But so it was just going through what had happened there, and sending behind the scenes stuff like that out to my list as well. So yeah, it's just about nurturing people and having somewhere to go, because I just didn't have that. That's something that I just didn't have, was a community, was a network of people to help me get to where I was going until recently. So yeah.
That's great. And you mentioned a little bit that you were number 3 on the charts. In the form that you sent, you were also number 2 in the charts at one point. I imagine you're up there in the charts pretty often. What's that like?
Yeah, I've got, I think I've got like 3 number 2s, 4 number 3s, It would be great if, Taylor Swift or Keith Urban didn't release the same week I was releasing. How rude. No, it's really great, because what I realized from this release, and like I said, my focus is actually on sync music now. So that music was recorded mainly for that. And then I just put the music out, and I, organized a pre-release, like a pre-order, so that my fan base, like my supporters, would know that that album was coming out, and so that they could, buy it, pre-order it. And I thought, okay, well, that, should give me a chance at doing well and getting on the charts. And I spent 32 days, so I had done it 6 weeks prior, like you should give yourself plenty of time. I spent 36 days back and forth with the distribution house going, why is this not available in Australia? So anyway, there was no pre-order, and all I had done was put up 3 posts on my social media about the album coming out. And that day it still went to number 3. So that blew my mind. It just shows, when you've got a loyal support base, and you're always interacting with them and you look after them, they look after you. So that, that was a real eye opener. But that one meant more to me than any of the other charts, because I worked really hard, to get up into those charts, because obviously the charts are based on how much is sold in my country that week. So
yeah, and that's an incredible accomplishment on your end. And you talk a lot about the, you're doing a lot of sync music nowadays. Working, so that's primarily like TV, film. How is that going? And like, what is for you, like your process? I know there's some artists who might be listening who would be interested in creating music for sync.
Yeah, see, it was something that I didn't even know about until my husband, a couple of years ago, because he's a musician as well, he's a producer, and a couple of years ago, we would be like lying in bed watching television. He's like, we should get your music onto the TV, like listen to those songs. And we were just joking for a while, because we didn't really know it was actually a thing. And a lot of artists don't realize how many different pockets there are in the music industry that you can make money from, and that's something that I will go into later within Shape Music, is, having multiple streams of income. Doesn't have to be outside of the music industry either. So yeah, we decided, okay, this is actually a thing. And then we bought an online course. Like I said, they're actually not that popular in Australia. People are like, what? They don't have degrees? You're doing it online? What? So we I think that was our first online course we bought, actually. And I'm like, this is really, really cool. So then did the course. My music that I had already had done, my husband just changed it all around so it was ready for sync licensing. And because I'm independent and I own all of my own music, so I own the masters, that meant that I was able to license them easily. So that's another great part of being independent. And then I followed the course, the online course, and that week we were signed with a music library in LA, and those guys find placements for us, which is fantastic. But sorry, in regards to your question and my process, I'm not somebody that likes to write often, actually. I like to do so many different things in the industry that if I kind of do the one thing all of the time, I kind of get, I don't want to do this anymore. But I've been lucky enough to win some songwriting awards, so I kind of just try to use that same process that I use for those songs. Like, that's a winner, let's do that. But yeah, mainly I come up with a hook first. So it's always like, in regards to writing, it's always, okay, I've got like a little hook. That's something that I'm good at with songwriting is those hooks. And then from there, it's just really about sitting down and get my butt into gear and go and just, finish the song. Other times, if I have things to write about, I can snap out a song really quickly. But I just, all of my stuff, and if you listen to it, is quite aggressive, quite angry. I'm an angry little thing, but it's like, that's not my personality. That's just what I love to write about, because I don't actually feel like that. I'm like a really happy person. People don't realize that, but I am. So yeah, if I've got something to write about, it'll be fast. I sit down, knock it out with my guitar or my piano, get some words. But other times it'll just be, okay, well, I've got this hook I need to write on. Then I take it to my husband, and we go from there and try to remain married.
I like the last part. So
yeah.
with that, you said that you took your master's and you took it to your husband. He did something to prepare it for sync licensing.
Yeah.
What do you actually have to do to prepare a song for sync licensing?
Yeah, that's his bag, but let me try to remember what he said. So when you record and you go to mixing, they have what are called stems. So each stem is like, one stem is your vocals. So that might be, one vocal line. Another stem might be a lead guitar. Another stem might be an acoustic guitar. So what you have to do is get all of those individual stems, the mixed versions, and they want those, because with the TV and film stuff, they might want your song, but they don't want your voice. Or they might want your song, but they really don't want the electric guitar that's right through it. They want to strip it right back. And then from there, you also have to create alternative versions. So what that means is, I've got my full version of my song, then I've got a stripped back acoustic version of my song, then I've got a holiday mix of my song. You get some little Christmas bells and stick those in there. So yeah, I don't know if I'm explaining it very well, but it's pretty in depth. Yeah. But they just like to have different versions and all of the bits and pieces basically that they can use for what they need, because it might only be 10 seconds. It might even only be the drum beat that they loved of your song that they take, like Jumanji. Remember that film where the elephants and stuff are coming in and they got just those drums, stuff like that. Anyway, so it's a lot of fun, but I really just record this, like write the songs and record them and hand them over to him. Oh, and then they ask you to fill out a sheet so they can put all of the information into a system. And TV and films, like Netflix and that, they can type in, okay, well, I want an angry song about, somebody that's had a fight with these kinds of instruments. And then you put all of that metadata in for your songs. The more metadata you got about the song, the easier it is for them to funnel down and find the songs that they want. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It does seem like a lot of work. Well, so with that, as we're getting to the close of our podcast, I would like to ask one final question, which is, if there was one piece of advice that you would give to any up-and-coming artist, and this is probably great coming from you because you're teaching classes on this, but if there was one piece of advice, one piece, what would you tell an upcoming artist?
I would tell an upcoming artist that it's a long game. if you are not willing to actually put in the work, have this as your business, and focus on growing and learning, don't bother. Unless you only want to put out music for fun. But if you actually want to be a serious artist, it's a job and you've got to do it well. Yeah. That would be my advice. It's not going to happen overnight, you know?
Yeah.
It's very rare, and if it did happen overnight, it's probably going to be a flash in the pan.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's my advice. Just go in knowing that you've got work to do, and it's consistent, and it's like a job. It just happens to be a fun one.
I like that.
I like that a lot. Well, with that being said, thank you, Kristy, so much for coming on the podcast today. It was awesome talking about all of this. I know our viewers, I know everyone has gotten so much more knowledge between what Australian country music is, how to get stems broken down to get sync licensing. So there has been a lot learned. I can't thank you enough for everything. And with that being said, if you enjoyed this podcast, please remember, give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're getting your podcasts, and we will see you next week.
I think I'm in the wrong destination. This boy, you told me that you would never waste my time. I bite the bullet, now I'm taking chances. I'm partying in all these fancy dresses. I can't believe I thought that you would be the love of my life. I'm good without you. I don't need your comments anymore. Could ever be. I've been spending time alone. Turns out I like it better on my own. These days I prefer my own company. I'm good without you. I don't need your comments anymore. I'm free without you. I don't need you keeping say what you wanna say, 'cause I'm not gonna make you stay, 'cause I'm living my damn life my way. Do what you gotta do, 'cause baby you'll be all through. Yeah, independent, yeah, looks so good. Free without you. I don't need you keeping me behind locked doors. So say what you wanna say, 'cause I'm not gonna